Hi everyone, welcome back. As always, let me know how you're all doing, if you're here live, all of that good stuff. I'm waiting for my phone to tell me that I am live. Okay, we're good. So, as usual, I put a poll out. You guys are a bit high. I put a poll up in the group to see what you were most interested in, and it was tied. So I think what we'll do is we'll do this one today, and then next week we'll do the winner, the other one that tied. So today we're going to look at how you start finding your personal audience online and start marketing to them, even if you don't have a film to show them yet. Whenever I take strategy calls or I'm just like having coffee, pre-lockdown, having coffee with filmmakers, I always ask, because I'm such a nerd for it, I always want to know what people are doing to reach their audience, to grow their audience. If you don't know why growing an audience is insanely useful for indie filmmakers, I have a really good blog post on it. I may put the link in the comments after this, but fundamentally growing your own audience as an indie filmmaker is the best thing you can do, especially because a lot of the questions that I know we all have when we're making our own films can be so easily answered by having your own audience and being able to go into meetings and leverage those numbers. Leveraging your own audience is so useful. But whenever I ask people that, they say, oh well, we don't have the stills yet, or we haven't shot the film yet, so we don't have any content to show them, or we aren't we're not ready to release the film yet, so we can't really show them any content. And it's all very project focused. So this is the big thing that I want everyone, I'd be willing to stand on a soapbox and say this very loudly so that everybody knows. You don't need to have a film in order to be able to grow your audience, in order to be able to have content, in order to be able to market yourself online. You don't need it. I'm growing my audience, and it's like nothing is related to any of my projects. None of the content I'm putting out is related to a specific project that I'm working on, mostly because I'm always quite cautious, because things fall apart in development all the time. And so I never really, until something is sort of set in stone and it's definitely going ahead, that's when I feel kind of safe to start talking about it. But it is so easy to grow your audience without having a finished film, without having like a huge back catalogue of work. You don't need it. So if there's anyone feeling the pressure or feeling like you can't do it until you've made a film, and then you end up putting more pressure on yourself to make the film in the first place, don't do it. You really don't need to do it. So for anyone watching in the collective, you guys know a lot of this already, and I know a lot of you are already putting in the work with finding your audience and creating engaging content for them and putting that out there. And it's so exciting seeing the work that you're doing and the results that you're getting already. It's so exciting. But for those of you not in the collective, this might be new to you. So I'm going to bring it right back to the beginning, so we're all all kind of at the same level. So if you're here live, let me know in the comments. Leave me a little hey, whatever, in the comments. If you're catching the replay, leave me a little hashtag replay as well. Any questions, as always, just drop them in the comments. But let's get into it, I think. And as always, if you're here live and you have questions, just drop them in the comments. So the first thing we need to get clear on is audience specifically. Now, when I say your personal audience, I do mean you as a filmmaker. I don't mean related to any of your projects. I don't mean dependent on any of your projects. Every filmmaker has their own individual audience, and you do as well, even if you don't feel like you do or you don't know where they are online. You have your own audience. And when you're able to start building that and growing that, it makes it a lot easier, because you aren't tethered, or sort of, tethered is probably the right word, to just one project. So think about any of the producers, directors, writers that you admire. When you think about them as an individual, there's a pretty good chance you are a fan of them as a creator, and you're a fan of all of their work generally. And you may have films of theirs that you love, films of theirs that You can kind of take or leave, but fundamentally you are a fan of them and their work. So it starts with them. And this is something that I want you all to be able to have clarity on when it comes to your personal audience, because they do exist and you can find them and you can target them, but it's just making sure that you are like bold enough to step out from behind your ideas. You know, don't just stick your audience onto one film, because, you know, one film can only go so far and last for so long. And when you come with your own audience, instead of having the audience from a specific project that you've made, you know, it's a lot more effective if you can go into any kind of pitch meeting or marketing meeting or whichever kind of meeting you're going into. Or, you know, not at the moment, we all just sit at the table and have Zoom meetings, but you get the drift. You know, whenever you are going into those meetings, when you come with your own audience, rather than, oh, we had this many people watch our last short film, it's so much more effective because that audience goes with you to everything that you do. In the same way that if you are a fan of, I don't know, Greta Gerwig, you go and you watch everything that she does. Or rather, you watch all of her films, you don't watch, you get the drift. But, you know, if you were just a fan of Lady Bird, then, you know, you might be tempted to go and see Little Women, but then Little Women is a very different film from Lady Bird, so it might not really stack up. Whereas if you are a fan of Greta Gerwig, there's much stronger chance of you going to see Little Women because she directed it. You see how much more effective it is when you come with your own audience rather than just kind of like the tail end of the audience from your last film. And it also means that you don't have to put like crazy pressure on your last film, or if you don't have a last film, if you've not made your own film before, it can feel very stressful trying to build up the audience for one project. If you haven't done it before, it can feel very stressful. So this is why building your personal audience, it's a lot easier, it's a lot more low-key, it's not nearly as stressful, and it's also, you know, the longevity of your own audience, really don't underestimate it. But now we have that out of the way and you have that sense of the difference between having your audience and having an audience for a specific project. We need to know how you define them in marketing terms, so that when you do start marketing to them and you are focused on growing them, you're not drawing a blank. So when it comes to marketing and when it comes to being really specific with your audience, as in who it is that you're marketing to, it tends to be broken down into 3 main areas. So if you're in the collective, you will know these 3 areas already, but maybe you need a refresher. But like I said at the beginning, we're going to bring it right back to the start so that we're all on the same page. So the 3 main areas are demographic, geographic, and psychographic. Try saying those 3 like 10 times fast. The demographic is the age range, and this is quite a big mistake that I see a lot of filmmakers making. None of us want to really be specific in this sense. Often when I ask people who they think their audience is in terms of age, people say maybe like 18 to like 30 or maybe 40, and I do get that. But think about an 18-year-old that you know, or did know, or maybe just remember when you were 18. How different is an 18-year-old from a 30-year-old? I mean, like, how different is an 18-year-old from a 21-year-old? There is a really big difference. Don't underestimate that difference in age. And that's why in the industry, we tend to keep it to quite specific demographic groups. So it's usually 18 to 20, 25, 26 to 34, and so on. And it tends to go up to like either 55 or 65, depending on, whoever it is that you're talking to. And then it's just like 65 plus, which is a shame really, because in the UK, the majority of our cinema going public, pre-lockdown, was the 50s up. So it would be really nice if it was actually broken down into more specific things. But anyway, we're getting off on a tangent. You have to be specific with your age. And, you can say 18 to 30, but break it down. So maybe your key audience is 18 to 25, and then your secondary audience is 26 to 34. And the way that, the reason that it's so helpful to break it down for demographics is because when you're marketing to these people, they hang out in different places, different things appeal to different people. So what you might find is that if you have two demographics, if you've got maybe 18 to 25 and then 26 to 34, you might find that Snapchat is more effective for the 18 to 25-year-olds and Instagram is more effective for the 26 to 34-year-olds. You get the gist. So you know which platforms you need to be on for each demographic. And then you can start thinking about the content that they are going to find really engaging and interesting. And the most important question to ask yourself for this is, what do they really want? Like, what is it that they're really looking for? Because it does take a lot to, get us out of scrolling mode. We all know what it's like when we're on Instagram. It takes a lot to get us to stop scrolling and actually read an entire caption. So think about it from your demographic, from your audience's point of view, and that will change depending on the age demographic. So then you have geographic, which is location. I know a few people in the collective are thinking about doing like dual language captions, and I think it's a great idea. If you, work between two countries or you work between two languages, go for dual languages in your captions. It'll involve like writing it out in English and then in whichever second language you're going for, which is a little bit more work, but in the long run, it's not too bad. And it means that you don't have to cut off, one part of your audience. So that's my calendar telling me I have a call in 10 minutes. So demographic is age, geographic is location, and then psychographic is the interests and hobbies and passions. And, sometimes it's kind of funny when you ask people about, or filmmakers specifically, about their psychographics for their audience, because some people go all in and they know like what these people are doing at 3 p.m. on a Tuesday or, whatever. And then some people have they've never thought about it before. But it is important to have all three elements so that you can market to these people effectively. And I say market, and it might sound kind of like sleazy or a bit salesy, but it really doesn't have to be. You can market to people, and it's often about having that strategy in place rather than it being sort of like, tasteless. Because I think, when you have that strategy in place and you're keeping that content really consistent, which is a really important part of growing an audience, you can't just leave them for 3 weeks and not post anything. You do have to be able to post consistent content so you can stay not like necessarily in the forefront of people's minds, but you just need to stay relevant. And the way that you do that is simply by consistent content. So everyone in the group program, we've gone through how you schedule that content in advance so that you make sure you are, posting consistently, even if you are like in the middle of rewriting your script, if you are in the middle of a shoot, not now, obviously, but we can be optimistic for the future. So scheduling that content means you do get to be consistent with it, and that's more of what I mean when I say marketing. I don't mean like sleazy sales guys. But if, the main question that kept coming up when we went through this in the group program was, what content do I actually need to be putting out there? And fundamentally, it's less about, straight out the gate, it doesn't really matter about perfect pictures. You don't need to put pressure on yourself to create beautiful, beautiful images. You can post kind of anything in terms of image. The caption is what people are going to remember. So when you're writing out that caption, do put yourself in the shoes of your audience, and now you have that real clarity, and that's why we have to be quite specific with it. You have that clarity, and you know them, not necessarily inside out, but you do have a really good sense of who they are. So you are able to put yourself in their shoes and think, okay, what do they really want? What do they need? Like, what do they need to see on Instagram today? Why are they scrolling through Instagram? Is it just like boredom? You're able to ask yourself those questions. So when you're putting together the content, and it can feel quite overwhelming when you feel like, okay, I have to put together a lot of content to make sure that it's really consistent, and I've got 3 posts going out a week, every single week. Like, it can be quite overwhelming. So all you really need to do is ask yourself, how can I build a connection with my audience? Like, everything is driven by emotion and feeling. You know, people don't really want to be talked at or talked to. They want to, you know, read your caption and feel something from it. That's how things, you know, that's really where a lot of the power lies. That's how you stay memorable. That's how you create a fan. When you can build that connection just through a caption that you wrote 3 weeks ago and scheduled into whichever scheduling tool you're using, like, that is so effective, and it's so efficient as well. And that's what I mean when I say you don't have to have a film ready and finished to show people, because that's not really what they're interested in. They're interested in you as a creator. They're interested in what you do and how you do it and why you do it. So, you know, when you know who they are, you're able to create content that's going to be really useful and engaging and memorable for them. And then it's just about building that connection. That's all it really is. So, you know, think about it from that perspective. Don't put content out there just because it feels like you need to constantly be putting content out there. You know, don't sort of bow to that pressure. Always do it from that place of feeling. You know, I think I was talking about that in the masterclass series I ran, it feels like forever ago, but we were talking about how, you know, as indie filmmakers, we're not in this to make, you know, super commercial, clean films. You know, that's the studio's game. That's not what we're up to. We are indie filmmakers, and so we are all about the heart and soul and the passion. So take all of that and put that into your captions, put that into your social media strategy. You know, this is, again, what I mean when I say it doesn't have to be like sleazy or salesy. When you do it with heart and you do it from that real place of creative integrity, it's so effective. Because think about, you know, who else you know on Instagram. Is anyone else really doing that? So just because you see, you know, people posting certain things on Instagram, or people have beautiful pictures, or, you know, whatever it is that you see people doing on Instagram, you know, often it's about doing the opposite. You know, you don't have to be like everyone else. In fact, it's better if you aren't. So get clear on who your audience is, unrelated to any project. Get really specific with the demographic, geographic, and psychographic. I wish they had easier names, wouldn't that, like shorter names, you know, but anyway, that's what they're called. And then put yourself in their shoes and think about what they really want and what they really need to see. You know, they don't necessarily need to see anything on Instagram, but really, what do they need in their life? You know, maybe they are writers that are really struggling to commit to their writing career, and seeing you and how you are staying creative in lockdown and how you are making progress on your scripts, and you sharing that might be the burst of inspiration or motivation that they've been looking for weeks, you know. So when you're putting that content together, do it from a place of heart and creativity and passion. And that's it. Genuinely, that's the whole thing. You know, it doesn't have to be like a crazy numbers game or, you know, sleazy sales tactics. It's you know, it doesn't have to be like fighting for attention or you know, whatever. It's just about finding exactly who wants to watch your films and who you're making your films for, and then, you know, giving them content that they really need, rather than just like any old stuff. But, you know, you can play with it, you know, put a few things out there, see what the response is. Never be afraid to go back in and rework the kind of content that you're sharing. You know, fundamentally, we are all creative. So think of it as, you know, when you think of it from that perspective of creating new things, it's kind of exciting. but it doesn't, like, you don't need to feel crazy amounts of pressure. You don't need to put crazy amounts of pressure on yourself. It's very easy and simple to do once you know how to do it. And sometimes it just takes a bit of practice with getting started. So, as always, leave me a hashtag replay in the comments. Questions, thoughts, ideas, all go in the comments. But for now, I will leave you to the beautiful sunny. It's not like we can go outside and enjoy the sun. Anyway, I'll leave you to the sunshine, and I will see you guys back here next week.